Lions all on the track, all on the boards right now.
Peace and much love. This is your brother Counterculture, and we riding the ninth wave.
Where you gonna get it like this? Where you gonna get it like this?
Welcome to another study session. It is the 35th day of the ninth wave. It is the 2nd of August, 2017, and we're almost completing another cycle. Tomorrow's day 36, the last day of the ninth wave, and after which we begin a new wave. And so therefore we have the sunrise threshold coming up. We're also at this moment within the gift frequencies. We have come out of the shadow frequencies, but we are still within the valley of the shadows. And I'm going to share something on that in a moment. And we are also in the 4th stage of the hero's journey, the meeting with the mentor. And the sun has moved into the 33rd gate, which empowers the gene key of revelation, mindfulness, and forgetting. I wanted to share some thoughts about the gift frequencies. But before I do that, I want to send out a shout out to all the people that are listening in. I welcome you to this study session. If you are new to this is my way of studying the ninth wave and incorporating other ideas that could fit into the ninth wave that I'm studying, that could help me better understand what's happening, the transitions that we're going through, and how to best go through them. And I want to send a special shout out to the study group, which comes under the same name or similar name, Riding the Ninth Wave of Creation. I want to thank you for adding me on. And it's very nice to encounter other people who are familiar with the ninth wave, or who want to become familiar with the ninth wave, or who are simply curious about the ninth wave. What I have done in this study is I have taken the knowledge of the ninth wave and I have incorporated into it the hero's journey, and at the same time I've incorporated into it the gene keys with its various frequencies. And I've done this because the ninth wave is about frequencies, and because there are so many correlating ideas, I've decided to put them together so that I can best understand what we're going through now, and to have my own empirical experience of all of these things, bringing them together. Besides that, it's just plain fun. You know, I get to learn, I get to share, which is what I enjoy doing. So with the sunrise threshold coming up, we're almost on a new wave. Very soon we're going to begin a new wave. And because we are approaching a new wave beginning in 2 days, I'd like to share an article by Dr. Kalaman in which he explains a little bit about the beginnings of waves. And Dr. Kalaman is one of the foremost researchers and has written a book, The 9 Waves of Creation, dealing with all of these issues about the ninth wave. So there's a nice article that he wrote a little while ago, and I think that there's a lot that can be learned from this article. It's titled, The 36-Day Period of the Ninth Wave, the Purpose of Celebrating April 18th, May 24th, June 29th, etc. The ninth wave is the creation wave that was activated on March 9th, 2011, and has continued to run ever since. By all accounts, it will continue to oscillate as a sine wave without end. It is the highest frequency wave of the Mayan calendar system and has a complete wave period of 36 regular days. A new such wave period, which is the 63rd wave period since its inception, begins April 18th. Next, the 64th period will start on May 24th, a day that, for instance, will be marked by San Bushman in Cape Town. Then, June 29th begins the 65th wave period that will be marked by international ceremonies. In this article, I will attempt to explain and describe why such global events are being created and why it is part of our evolutionary purpose to follow the ninth wave. I may begin by pointing out that there are different kinds of shift points in the Mayan calendar system. One type is when a significant change in the mentality of a segment of humanity, usually not all people, but a small energy-sensitive minority, decisively changes once and for all. Examples may be the harmonic convergence in 1987, which marked the beginning of the pre-wave to the eighth wave, or the conscious convergence in 2010, which marked the beginning of the pre-wave of the ninth wave. Most important of such shifts may be the concurrent shift in several different waves on October 28, 2011, which has provided the background to the world we are living in today. Such events may be said to have the purpose of celebrating a shift created by the new energies of the waves, and are truly to be regarded as one-time events, as the world afterwards will be forever changed. In contrast, the marking and empowering of the new beginning of new days, or peaks, of the ninth wave, for instance on April 18th, May 24th, June 29th, and August 4th, 2017, etc., are not one-time events. They, as well as any other starting point of such a wave period, are about creating awareness in yourself and others of the existence of a wave generating unity consciousness, and to help you tune into the frequency of this. This wave is the positive forward moving wave that was created in the shift of 2011 that leads to the manifestation of the destiny of humanity as a unified species, and no one talking about being part of the shift should ignore it. What this means is that it is, especially in the peak periods of the ninth waves, that projects towards unity consciousness will have wind on their backs, and this is true also if your project is simply yourself and your way of being in the world. This also means that you will have to gain and spread awareness of this wave so that you as an individual can gain the necessary guidance for how to be and act in this world, even under very chaotic conditions created by lower frequency waves. This guidance is given to you especially during the peak periods of the wave, whereas the valley periods are essentially periods of reaction, when you have to deal with whatever in yourself is inconsistent with the manifestation of unity consciousness. This insight can only be gained from your own experience, and the fact that I or someone else may be advocating creating the awareness of the ninth wave has little import if this is not consistent with how you experience the ups and downs of the 36-day waveform. It is only to the extent that you are able to experience your awareness that this waveform fundamentally is what conditions your process towards unity consciousness, or ascension as some would prefer to say, that you will successfully be able to tune into the frequency defining the destiny of humanity and allow you to be part of manifesting this. What this means is that the crucial thing is to be able to observe yourself in relation to the waveform, and this will come out of learning how to tune into it. This does not by itself require that you participate in large-scale ceremonies or meditations, although such events will alert you to what is happening in the energy field that underlies the material aspects of our existence. It is perfectly sufficient that you light a candle or a sacred fire, or face the sun on the first day, that you mark for the next 18 days that you, as a being committed to the creation of a golden age, will have the wind to your back. You may also pray for guidance for this time period regarding what steps you should take in your individual projects, and these may be very diverse, to have this come true. The development of resonance with the nine wave is thus not a one-time event. It is something that will occur over time as you fine-tune your experience of it. This requires marking several of its beginning points, and this is not really a process that has an end. Over time, you will increasingly become an expression of the ninth wave, and if you believe in the return of Quetzalcoatl or the plumed serpent, you will be it. Naturally, it may be argued that there are people that are manifesting unity consciousness without consciously having developed resonance with the ninth wave. Nonetheless, such resonance can still be a remarkable aid also to such individuals, as it makes them fully aware of the existence of such a creation wave, which is directed towards the future of humanity in unity. To also actually follow this wave with its ups and downs may in addition provide a self-correcting instrument of great importance for those who try to navigate the many large waves that exist in the ocean of creation. To make an analogy, we may look at tuning into the ninth wave somewhat like tuning into a newly established radio station. First of all, you and other people need to be informed that this station exists, and for this purpose it is useful to stage public events informing about it. Secondly, you have to know at what frequency the station is broadcasting, since otherwise you will not be able to hear it. Third, the listener may need to work to optimally tune in to the frequency so that he or she gets a clear signal. The latter is all the more important if there are several other stations that are powerfully broadcasting at competing frequencies that may make it difficult to hear the desired station. This is very much the case regarding the ninth wave, since there are lower waves that prevent the listener from getting a clear signal. This is the real crux of the matter. Hence, even if there are many groups and movements that are talking about oneness, ascension, and fourth dimensionality, unless their work is connected to the ninth wave, they will not be able to gain the guidance to get there. So will the world change on days such as April 18th, May 24th, or June 29th? What absolutely will be enhanced during the 18 days following such dates is the potential for manifesting unity consciousness. Already now we may see some steps in the direction towards unity also on a global scale occurring on such dates. You may, for instance, make note if certain ideas or persons in power are supported by the days or the nights. This will tell you much more about the future of a phenomenon than political opinions. Yet, nothing changes in the time periods that are days unless people tune into the energy shifts and change who you are in the world as a result of your resonance with the ninth wave. Over time, we will then see a strengthening of the process toward unity consciousness in such a way that actions and projects expressing unity are increasingly synchronized, also on a visible global scale. Resonance with the ninth wave will, in other words, increasingly become a synchronizing factor for positive projects for the world. Personally, I believe that unless a large part of humanity develops such a resonance, we have very little reason to expect that our species will survive. To counteract a potentially disastrous future, we must then now urgently develop a collective calling to manifest our golden age destiny of unity through resonance with the ninth wave. And it can only happen day by day. And that was Dr. Kalaman. A lot of what was said in that article really corresponds to a lot of the things that I've been learning over these cycles, and a lot of the things that I've been reading about frequencies and learning about unity consciousness in general. So it was a good article that kind of really summed up what it is that I've been studying on over these, let's say 3 or 4 months, because now I'm coming to the end of the third cycle that I've been through and beginning a fourth cycle with this next wave that is coming in. I also wanted to say a few words about the gift frequencies, because now we are in the gift frequencies, and the gift frequencies have a unique position because all of the 3 frequencies that come from the gene keys within the ninth wave all have 12 days dedicated. However, the gift frequency being in the middle is separated into 2 periods, a rising period and a descending period. So, for instance, we just came out of the shadow frequencies. The shadow frequencies lasted for about 12 days. We're now in the gift frequencies, and the gift frequencies are only going to last 6 days, followed by 12 days of divine frequencies, followed by another 6 days of gift frequencies. Now, the interesting thing about the gift frequencies and what I wanted to say about the gift is that the gift, even though it exists both in the lower planes and in the higher planes, both in the valley of the shadows as well as in the realm of the light entities, is because gifts have not necessarily a neutrality, but they can go either way. We've had a lot of people in life who have used their gifts in a positive way as well as used their gifts in a negative way. The gift of insight, for example, someone had an insight on how to build a nuclear power plant. Now, that didn't turn out to be necessarily positive. That same gift of insight could create many positive things and has created many positive things. So you have the gift of leadership, which is a positive, and the gift of leadership, which is a negative. So the gift exists both in the lower frequencies and in the higher frequencies. And what we like to do is that when we invoke the light entities, when we invoke the higher frequencies, the divine frequencies, we're asking that our gifts be uplifted. So that if, for example, I have the gift of insight, so I would call on Epiphany to help me to have greater insights. And I would look to my shadow to try to discover why my gifts or my insights are being used in a negative way, or why I'm being pulled towards the negative use of a gift. So a gift can be either negative or positive. So I like that along the ninth wave in the frequency band, the gift frequency is divided between night and day, between the higher realms and the lower realms. So we're traveling through this gift frequency now, and soon the gift frequencies will elevate into the light realm. Obviously, as we are expressing ourselves towards unity consciousness, we always want to take our gifts to the higher level of what those gifts can be and what those gifts can give to the service of humanity. I wanted to share an insight based on something that I mentioned in the last recording, and something that I have been thinking about for some time now. Because I have not had an opportunity to read further into the other waves, I don't have the book, and I've only really learned from a lot of the videos that I've seen, the seminars and some articles that I've read. But there was because I was trying to understand this ninth wave and the power that it could have. And I saw an image of the wave frequency of, for example, the seventh wave, the eighth wave, and the ninth wave, all on the same page. And when you see the sine wave that it creates, you have the seventh wave, which is this long kind of sine wave. And then you have the eighth wave, which it's more, there are more peaks and valleys. When you go from the seventh to the eighth to the ninth, when you go to the ninth, it's almost as if there's this big block of sine waves that are so dense that you almost don't see the sine waves because it's so compressed. So this is a wave of consciousness that is propelling us up into the higher frequencies and dipping us down into the lower frequencies at a really fast pace. And lately I've been hearing over the years a lot of talk of how time seems to be speeding up, and perhaps this is correlated to this. But I wanted to say this. I was looking through some of the waves, and I think it was the sixth wave that I was looking at, and how Kalaman had correlated this wave with the rise and fall of empires. Now, this is the insight that I had come to. When you have a wave that lasts, let's say 2 years, for example, the eighth wave lasts nearly 2 years. When that wave reaches the high frequencies, it takes time to get there. It's a gradual lifting up of those frequencies, and things happen during that time period. Now, when you go back even further, for the example, what I was saying about the sixth wave is you have the rise of empires and you have the fall of empires. Those waves last hundreds of years. So if you can imagine that there are people who may never see the rise of those empires, who may never experience the height of those high frequencies in which empires are built, because those high frequencies come around every several hundred years. The power that is in those high frequencies will never be experienced by those who live through the time period in which those low frequencies happen. But the thing is now, if these frequencies are high and low, and now in the ninth wave, we have those high frequencies available to us in a 36-day period. You don't have to wait 2 years. You don't have to wait hundreds of years. The next period of high frequencies is coming along nearly on a monthly basis. So potentially, now this is the hypothesis that I came to. This is the idea that I came to. Potentially, after the midnight threshold, which is what I talked about in the last recording, you have 18 days in which the energies and the frequencies are climbing towards that peak in which historically empires could be built. Empires were built. So hypothetically speaking, you can build an empire in 18 days. With our unity consciousness, with these frequencies raising so quickly, we could get to the consciousness of building an empire in the next 18 days. This equally means that after those 18 days, we could potentially in 18 days destroy that empire. Now, I'm using empire symbolically because obviously when you think of empire, you think of palaces and buildings and agricultural communities and all of this, but it is the symbol of the power of an entire empire that could be built. It is the energy of that consciousness that helped those empires to be built that we are having now at our disposal. And even if you heard in that article, Kalaman was saying that the 18-day period of the higher energies is when a lot can get done. A lot of projects can really go forward with the wind at your back. So as we continue to climb, I think it is useful and beneficial to spend those 18 days that we are creating projects and we are looking towards unity consciousness, bearing in mind the speed at which something can happen. Because we are now condensing down into 36 days what at one time took hundreds of years to do. And so during that climb, I believe that it is a positive thing to focus on unity consciousness, as Kalaman was saying. But at the same time, when we hit that peak and we start to descend back down into the descending frequencies, to bear in mind that a lot of what we create can easily be destroyed just as easily as it can be built up. I'm working on what the brother Kalaman was saying on trying to resonate with these frequencies to see what happens. And so far, so good. Because a new wave is about to begin, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share an archetype, because as the hero's journey continues through this ninth wave, I think we ought to understand different aspects of the archetypes that the hero will encounter, and in all actuality, what the hero is. Because all of the archetypes are really aspects of the hero, facets of the hero. And as I read before, in one of the previous recordings, I read The Shadow, and there was a point where it said that the villain in whatever story often believes himself to be the hero, because the villain represents his or her people. The hero represents his or her people, and they both feel as if they are the hero of their people. In reality, the hero is really all of the archetypes in one, because all of the archetypes, whether you are the shadow, whether you are the threshold guardian, whether you are a mentor or teacher, you go through the hero's journey as well. So because we are approaching a new wave, I would like to share the threshold guardian archetype so that we can understand a little bit about what happens when we encounter this archetype and when we encounter thresholds in our lives. So once again, from the writer's journey, I'd like to read to you. Threshold guardian. Quote, I, for one, have an idea that he will never bring this journey off. Unquote. The Odyssey of Homer. All heroes encounter obstacles on the road to adventure. At each gateway to a new world, there are powerful guardians at the threshold, placed to keep the unworthy from entering. They present a menacing face to the hero, but if properly understood, they can be overcome, bypassed, or even turned into allies. Many heroes, and many writers, encounter threshold guardians, and understanding their nature can help determine how to handle them. Threshold guardians are usually not the main villains or antagonists in stories. Often they will be lieutenants of the villain, lesser thugs or mercenaries hired to guard access to the chief's headquarters. They may also be neutral figures who are simply part of the landscape of the special world. In rare cases, they may be secret helpers placed in the hero's path to test her willingness and skill. There is often a symbolic relationship between the villain and a threshold guardian. In nature, a powerful animal such as a bear will sometimes tolerate a smaller animal such as a fox nesting at the entrance of its lair. The fox, with its strong smell and sharp teeth, tends to keep other animals from wandering into the cave where the bear is sleeping. The fox also serves as an early warning system for the bear by making a racket if something tries to enter the cave. In similar fashion, villains of stories often rely on underlings such as doorkeepers, bouncers, bodyguards, sentries, gunslingers, or mercenaries to protect and warn them when a hero approaches the threshold of the villain's stronghold. Psychological function, neurosis. These guardians may represent the ordinary obstacles we all face in the world around us: bad weather, bad luck, prejudice, oppression, or hostile people, like the waitress who refuses to grant Jack Nicholson's simple request in 5 easy pieces. But on a deeper psychological level, they stand for our internal demons, the neuroses, emotional scars, vices, dependencies, and self-limitations that hold back our growth and progress. It seems that every time you try to make a major change in your life, these inner demons rise up to their full force, not necessarily to stop you, but to test if you are really determined to accept the challenge of change. Dramatic function, testing. Testing of the hero is the primary dramatic function of the threshold guardian. When heroes confront one of these figures, they must solve a puzzle or pass a test. Like the Sphinx, who presents Oedipus with a riddle before he can continue his journey, threshold guardians challenge and test heroes on the path. How to deal with these apparent obstacles? Heroes have a range of options. They can turn around and run, attack the opponent head on, use craft or deceit to get by, bribe or appease the guardian, or make an ally of a presumed enemy. Heroes are aided by a variety of archetypes known collectively as allies, which will be discussed in a separate chapter. One of the most effective ways of dealing with the threshold guardian is to get into the skin of the opponent, like a hunter entering into the mind of a stalked animal. The Plains Indians wore buffalo skins to sneak within bowshot of the bison herd. The hero may get past the threshold guardian by entering into its spirit or taking on its appearance. A good example is in Act 2 of The Wizard of Oz, when the Tin Woodsman, Cowardly Lion, and Scarecrow come to the Wicked Witch's castle to rescue the kidnapped Dorothy. The situation looks bleak. Dorothy's inside a strong castle defended by a regiment of fierce-looking soldiers who march up and down singing "Oh-ee-oh." There's no possible way for the three friends to defeat such a large force. However, our heroes are ambushed by 3 sentries and overcome them, taking their uniforms and weapons. Disguised as soldiers, they join the end of the column and march right into the castle. They have turned an attack to their advantage by literally climbing into the skins of their opponents. Instead of uselessly trying to defeat a superior enemy, they have temporarily become the enemy. It's important for a hero to recognize and acknowledge these figures as threshold guardians. In daily life, you have probably encountered resistance when you try to make a positive change in your life. People around you, even those who love you, are often reluctant to see you change. They are used to your neuroses and have found ways to benefit from them. The idea of your changing may threaten them. If they resist you, it's important to realize they are simply functioning as threshold guardians, testing you to see if you are really resolved to change. Signals of new power. Successful heroes learn to recognize threshold guardians not as threatening enemies, but as useful allies and early indicators that new power or success is coming. Threshold guardians who appear to be attacking may in fact be doing the hero a huge favor. Heroes also learn to recognize resistance as a source of strength. As in bodybuilding, the greater the resistance, the greater the strength. Rather than attacking the power of threshold guardians head-on, heroes learn to use it so it doesn't harm them. In fact, it makes them stronger. The martial arts teach that an opponent's strength can be used against him. Ideally, threshold guardians are not to be defeated but incorporated, literally taken into the body. Heroes learn the Guardian's tricks, absorb them, and go on. Ultimately, fully evolved heroes feel compassion for their apparent enemies and transcend rather than destroy them. Heroes must learn to read the signals of their threshold guardians. In The Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell illustrated this idea beautifully with an example from Japan. Ferocious-looking demon statues sometimes guard the entrances to Japanese temples. The first thing you notice is one hand held up like that of a policeman gesturing stop. But when you look more closely, you see the other hand invites you to enter. The message is, those who are put off by outward appearances cannot enter the special world, but those who can see past surface impressions to the inner reality are welcome. In stories, threshold guardians take on a fantastic array of forms. They may be border guards, sentinels, night watchmen, lookouts, bodyguards, banditos, editors, doormen, bouncers, entrance examiners, or anyone whose function is to temporarily block the way of the hero and test her powers. The energy of the threshold guardian may not be embodied as a character, but may be found as a prop, architectural structure, animal, or force of nature that blocks and tests the hero. Learning how to deal with threshold guardians is one of the major tests of the hero's journey. There it is. So we are coming upon a threshold, and in life and actuality, there's always going to be thresholds. So identifying the threshold guardian, and you know what's interesting? Sometimes in life, you will actually have to be a threshold guardian. Sometimes along this hero's journey, one completely identifies themselves with the hero because it's a positive thing. It's a glamorous thing. Everybody wants to be the hero. But sometimes you need to be the mentor. Sometimes you need to be the ally of the hero. And sometimes you need to be the shadow, the enemy. Sometimes you are the enemy, even though you think you're the hero. Because the other person sees you as the enemy. The other person sees you as the shadow, even though you see yourself as the hero. And sometimes you need to be a threshold guardian. Sometimes palaces need to be defended. Temples need to be defended. Gates need to be defended. Territory needs to be defended. And sometimes the responsibility of the threshold guardian is not necessarily a negative. So we are coming upon a threshold. Who knows if in these days threshold guardians will pop up for you. If they do, bear these words in mind. Okay, so let's move on now to the hero's journey again. But because we're in the fourth stage, now tomorrow will be the stage in which you cross the threshold. So it's appropriate that I express the threshold archetype today, so that, it's timely, because it's just, more than likely tomorrow I won't do another recording. So this will serve for tomorrow's. But for today, we are still in the hero's journey on stage 4. And stage 4 is meeting with the mentor. So again, I'll go back to the writer's journey. And I'd like to read just a few words about the mentor. Stage 4, mentor, the wise old man or woman. By this time, many stories will have introduced a Merlin-like character who is the hero's mentor. The relationship between hero and mentor is one of the most common themes in mythology, and one of the richest in its symbolic value. It stands for the bond between parent and child, teacher and student, doctor and patient, God and man. The mentor may appear as a wide old wizard, Star Wars, a tough drill sergeant, an officer and a gentleman, or a grizzled old boxing coach, Rocky. In the mythology of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, it was Lou Grant. In Jaws, it's the crusty Robert Shaw character who knows all about sharks. The function of mentors is to prepare the hero to face the unknown. They may give advice, guidance, or magical equipment. Obi-Wan in Star Wars gives Luke his father's lightsaber, which he will need in his battles with the dark side of the Force. In The Wizard of Oz, Glinda the Good Witch gives Dorothy guidance and the ruby slippers that will eventually get her home again. However, the mentor can only go so far with the hero. Eventually, the hero must face the unknown alone. Sometimes, the mentor is required to give the hero a swift kick in the pants to get the adventure going. Because tomorrow is the crossing of the threshold, and there's only about a couple of paragraphs here, I'd like to read that as well. And in my chart, I called it crossing the threshold, even though it's called crossing the first threshold. Because the ninth wave, because I've inverted the ninth wave, and because the hero's journey along the ninth wave doesn't necessarily begin on day one, and there are other thresholds. I've included this in previous recordings where I talked about 4 thresholds within the ninth wave. I've decided to call it crossing the threshold, but in the story of the hero's journey, it's really crossing the first threshold. So stage 5, this is for tomorrow and the following days as we cross the actual threshold into a new ninth wave. Stage 5, crossing the first threshold. Now the hero finally commits to the adventure and fully enters the special world of the story for the first time by crossing the first threshold. He agrees to face the consequences of dealing with the problem or challenge posed in the call to adventure. This is the moment when the story takes off and the adventure really gets going. The balloon goes up, the ship sails, the romance begins, the plane or the spaceship soars off, the wagon trains get rolling. Movies are often built in 3 acts, which can be regarded as representing 1, the hero's decision to act, 2, the action itself, and 3, the consequences of the action. The first threshold marks the turning point between acts 1 and 2. The hero, having overcome fear, has decided to confront the problem and take action. She is now committed to the journey and there's no turning back. This is the moment when Dorothy sets out on the yellow brick road. The hero of Beverly Hills Cop, Alex Foley, decides to defy his boss's order, leaving his ordinary world of the Detroit streets to investigate his friend's murder in the special world of Beverly Hills. So there you have just a few words to think about as we walk along, as we move along our hero's journey along this ninth wave. I realize that I've taken a lot of time today, but there was a lot that needed to be shared today. It's been a couple of days since I've actually done a study session, but we're going to move on to this last piece, and that way I can let you all go and send you on your way. As I like to do always with every study session, I like to share a part of the gene keys so that we can better understand frequencies and understand ourselves. As I mentioned at the beginning, the sun has moved into the 33rd gate, and this empowers the gene key, which gives us the divine essence or the light entity of revelation, the gift of mindfulness, and the shadow of forgetting. Because we are in the gift frequencies, we've finally gotten out of those shadow frequencies because we've been dealing with those shadows for a while now. With a sense of relief, I'd like to share with you this 33rd gift, which is the gift of mindfulness. And mindfulness is something that is going to be very important as we enter into this new wave, as we take on these new qualities, as we monitor what is happening in the world and what is happening as these fluctuating high frequencies and low frequencies continue to impact our lives. So here we go into the book Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. The 33rd gift, mindfulness, the death of the ego. When you raise the frequency of the 33rd shadow to the 33rd gift, it becomes something rather magical, a quality called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a word often used in Buddhism, where it is understood as one of the great attributes of meditation. To be mindful means to be attentive, but it also suggests more than this. The person who displays the gift of mindfulness is someone who has loosened the grip of both extremes of the 33rd shadow. They are no longer held captive by their own unconscious desires, fears, and reactions. At the level of mindfulness, they may still hide or react, but now they can see themselves doing it. Once the process of self-remembering has begun, in a certain sense you enter a kind of purgatory. At least when you were asleep in the shadow frequency, you were ignorant of your sanskaras and the cause and extent of your own suffering. Now, however, you begin to see the very patterns that cause your own suffering, and the more mindful you become, the more pain and futility you encounter. After a certain time, however, mindfulness begins to transform the kinetic energy within your own sanskaras, and a new view of life opens up before you. It is also through mindfulness that you discover how to refine and purify your nature so that you no longer create negative karma. This process of purification is an integral part of the loosening of your sanskaras, and it can be hugely accelerated through working within your relationships. Through the ring of trials, you learn how to discriminate, the 12th gift, between that which keeps you trapped and that which brings you freedom. And you do this by moderating your thoughts, feelings, speech, and actions. Similarly, through the other allied stop codon, the 56th gift of enrichment, you see how easily you are distracted away from your true nature by your senses. Thus, you begin to be drawn towards experiences that enrich your spirit rather than experiences and addictions that simply stimulate or overstimulate your senses. Mindfulness, as such, is a very enriching process. The karma inside your DNA is systematically transformed back into pure essence. This essence, in turn, is so wonderful that you find yourself wanting to experience more of it. You have found the secret of all human desire. Once it is purified into its natural state of divine longing, it becomes the very fuel that returns you to your true center of being. In Buddhism, there is a well-known meditation technique called vipassana. Although it can be translated in many ways, it points towards a witnessing self-awareness. In one sense, every one of the 64 gifts is a type of vipassana, a self-witnessing that is a prelude to the shaking off of the negative patterns of your own shadows. True transcendence only occurs at the level of the siddhi, but the bridge to these higher levels is the myriad of techniques and themes of the 64 gifts. At the gift frequency, technique is still extremely valid, which is why meditation or contemplation is so helpful. For most people, it is the gift that is the most accessible route to the higher dimensions. In fact, you may say that the shadow is the seed, the gift is the flower, and the siddhi is the fruit. One step automatically leads to the next step. Mindfulness is not really a technique, although it can be in the beginning. Mindfulness is the organic flowering of self-awareness or self-remembering. As you awaken within the Maya, the gift of mindfulness springs up from within you as a natural aspect of your nature. As soon as you begin to witness your karmic patterns in action, your sanskaras begin to unwind. To be mindful means to catch yourself in the middle of a heated argument and to realize that you have forgotten your true nature. In effect, it is to see your own victimhood. As you begin to see through these unconscious tendencies that have driven your nature for so long, a new awareness develops within you. It is important to understand that at the frequency level of the gifts, you are not yet free from your patterns, but you are engaged in a process that is progressively weakening them. It is at this level that another interesting phenomena occurs. The closer you come to the Siddhic quantum leap, the more challenging and intense your patterns appear to become. They are not, in fact, becoming any harder, but you are becoming more and more aware that you are asleep, which in turn makes you feel more and more uncomfortable. However, since you have also learned by now that you are unable to do anything to speed up your awakening, you start to witness your illusion beginning to crack around the edges. This is what mystics refer to as the death of the ego. Your mindfulness is the only thing that you can rely upon at this stage, and eventually, even that too will have to dissolve. Interestingly enough, mindfulness is the prerequisite for genius. The gift level is the level of your genius. When you can objectively view your thoughts, your feelings, your passions and desires, your own subjectivity, only then can you create art from them. If you are a scientific genius, you need to be able to think with your feelings or feel with your thoughts. This is how genius emerges into the world. It is witnessed. This is also why many geniuses are uninterested in recognition. They know they do not create their genius. It only happens when you are not there. Genius is a state of consciousness, a certain stage in the raising of our frequency. True mindfulness occurs when you become aware that something else is beginning to look through your eyes, think through your mind, and live through your actions. This something else, whether we call it genius, meditation, or prayer, is the larger reality remembering itself through us. There it is. Well, we had a lot today to go through, and it's been fun. I appreciate anyone who has been listening in. As always, if you have any questions or comments or anything that you would like to share with me or anything that was not clear, please feel free to get a hold of me, and I will do my best to respond. As always, this is your brother Counterculture. We are riding the ninth wave, and I salute you in peace, love, respect, unity, of course, and gratitude.
If you don't like what you singing, you sing a different hook. If you don't like what you cooking, you get a different cook. If you don't like what you wearing, you get a different look. You wanna escape Armageddon? Read a different book. When knowledge is right there, we don't even look. December 2012 got this whole world shook. But look, the last days for others are the first days for us. The question to ask is, who can you trust? Respect to all that 2012 stuff, but when you really study it as fear, it don't apply to us. Yo, Hollywood lies to us all day. The question is, what does your culture say? Where's your culture at? Who's your prophet? What history guides your spiritual logic? It starts with a story, then it's hypnotic. Then any myth that comes along, you just adopt it. And why? Because your culture, you forgot it. December 2012, let's continue this topic. Turn the page. The present world age began 3114 BC. According to the Mayan calendar, this age concludes December 21st, 2012 AD. This 5,125-year cycle of time is one world age. Nothing changes overnight. It's all a process, a transition. It happens over many days. In the Mayan calculation, a kin is 1 day. The Mayan all, that's 20 days. The tune is 360 days. The cartoon is 7,200 days. The buck tune is 144,000 days. And they applied that to the Milky Way. In the cycles they saw the sun moving across the Milky Way's equator, lining up with other galactic neighbors. We've been shifting for 30 years, it seems, from 1980 to about 2016. The shift is now, it's occurring now. But if you're learning from the movies, you won't know how to survive or stay alive after the storm. Cause after that, a new world order is born. Oh, you don't know, man, about they programs? You still watching Lindsay? You don't see that low hand? Let's go, man, the flood is coming. Don't be scared, get prepared, keep your motor running. Rock with me. Higher level. Higher level. Higher level. Higher level. Higher level. Higher level. Yep, it's all mass control. Here's the philosophy. Cortez knew about the Aztec prophecy. Before he invaded their society, he studied their cultural psychology. He knew they had armor, guns, and speed, so he arrived in the Aztec year of Juan Reed. That's the year Quetzalcoatl was prophesied to return from exile. In fact, Cortez played out the Aztec myth and took away those people's will to resist. Cortez played on religious beliefs and blinded the Aztecs cause he was a thief. Look, the Yucatan, that's a Mayan book of cycles. It lets the Mayans know when the gods are gonna strike you. In fact, every 13 cartoons you see, the Mayans are visited with a catastrophe. So every 200 or 56 or 7 years, the Mayan people live with this fear. So on the island of Tayasor, now Flores, the Spanish came on with this knowledge. They knew, according to the Mayan heavens, that the next cycle was 1697. So as the Mayans stood there fixed on the heavens, the Spanish showed up with all of their weapons. March 13th, 1697, the Mayan people learned a terrible lesson. Your fears and tears are used against you, cause 80% of world control is mental. But back to the Mayans, they're getting some more. 257 years after Tayasor, the US backed coup overthrows their democracy in 1954. That's exactly 257 years from when the Spaniards arrived at their shores. I'm getting to the core of the lesson. Let's see what happens in 2211. That's the next cycle, the people remember. Like 2012, the 21st of December. The consciousness may shift, you may turn the light, but you are the universe, you're gonna be alright. The pole may shift, your soul may lift the higher consciousness, but you know all this. The edutainment style won't persist. Forget the fear, it's knowledge that runs all this. Higher level. Lions all on the track. Rock that shit. Rock that. Rocking them drums to the